If you've been scrolling through endless lists of welders, watching video after video of people bragging about their perfect machine, and still can't decide which one actually makes sense for the shop you're building, this review is going to clear that up. You're probably thinking about the balance between flexibility and simplicity, wondering if paying extra for a multi-process unit will actually save you time, or if you'd be better off buying separate dedicated machines. The Miller Multimatic 215 Pro with its TIG Contractor Kit promises to be that all-in-one solution, and the link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's dig into what that promise looks like once you plug it in, fire it up, and start welding on real projects. First, let's talk about the core idea behind a multi-process welder. In a typical small to medium shop, you'll see three main processes showing up: MIG for speed on sheet metal, TIG when you need precision or aluminum, and sometimes stick for repair work in the field. Owning three separate machines quickly adds up in cost, footprint, and the hassle of swapping cables and gas setups. The Multimatic 215 Pro is Miller's attempt to collapse those three jobs into one cabinet. It does that by offering pulsed MIG and pulsed TIG, plus a full contractor-grade TIG kit right out of the box. For someone who flips between thin-gauge aluminum frames one day and thick-wall steel structures the next, the concept is undeniably attractive. Who should buy this? Think of a fabricator who does a mix of automotive custom work, small-scale steel fabrication, and occasional aluminum bicycle frames. If you spend at least a few hours a week switching between MIG on steel and TIG on aluminum, the ability to store program settings for both processes and recall them instantly can shave minutes off each setup. The program memory feature also lets you keep a favorite set of parameters like voltage, wire feed speed, and pulse timing so you don't have to retune the machine each time you come back to a job. That's a real productivity win when you're trying to keep a deadline or a job site moving. On the flip side, if you're a hobbyist who only ever does MIG on mild steel for small projects, you'll probably find the additional knobs and menus a bit overkill. The multi-process nature means there's a learning curve. You have to understand pulsed welding, which behaves differently from the more set-it-and-forget-it straight-wire setups many entry-level welders use. The contractor-grade TIG kit includes a foot pedal, torch, and a high-frequency start, all of which are excellent for professional-grade work, but they also add weight and complexity to the overall package. If your welding needs are limited to a single process, a dedicated stick or MIG machine might give you a more streamlined experience. Now, let's get into the practical strengths that actually matter when you're on the bench or in the field. One of the biggest time savers is the BeadVision system. It's a small camera that mounts near the torch and feeds a live image of the weld pool onto the control screen. When you're doing TIG on thin aluminum, that visual cue can be the difference between a clean bead and one that's too deep or too shallow, especially if you're working in low-light conditions. In real-world shop tests, welders have reported that being able to see the bead in real time helps them catch defects early, reducing scrap and rework. That's a tangible benefit you can actually notice in your daily workflow. Another real-world advantage is the Auto-Set function. You set the material thickness and type, and the machine automatically adjusts the voltage, amperage, and pulse parameters for you. For someone who isn't a welding expert, that can be the safety net that prevents you from under or overdriving the current and blowing out the weld. In a scenario where you're trying to weld a thin-walled aluminum bracket for a motorcycle, the Auto-Set can dial in the correct settings in seconds, letting you focus on positioning the workpiece instead of fiddling with dials. The included TIG Contractor Kit is also worth mentioning because it's not just a starter kit, it's a professional torch with a foot pedal that gives you fine control over amperage. When you're doing a TIG joint that requires a delicate heat input, that pedal allows you to adjust the current on the fly without taking your hand off the torch. It's a feature you often see only on higher-priced standalone TIG machines, so having it bundled saves you the expense of purchasing a separate torch later on. Of course, no machine is without its practical weaknesses. One recurring point among users of similar multi-process units is that the power draw can be higher than a single-process welder. The 215 Pro needs a robust 120/240V supply, and if you're operating in a mobile environment with limited power availability, you could find yourself needing a larger generator or a dedicated circuit. That's a logistical cost that's easy to overlook until you try to run the machine on a job site. Additionally, while the pulsed MIG and TIG capabilities are